Hello and welcome to Mummies in Christ, and today I'm going to be talking on a subject that's very difficult to talk about, and that's about divorce and grieving. And it's a subject I never thought I'd really talk about, because I do tend to stick to subjects that I'm going through or I'm interested in, and although it is a subject that I have been interested in, I tend to stick to things that I'm going through. And well, as it goes, I am going in a process of a divorce today, and I really wanted to talk about this because it is a very big, difficult and deep subject with a lot of questions around it and a lot of unresolved sorrows for some people. There's no need to keep continuing in the pain of not knowing what is the right thing to do. The Bible does make it clear what the right thing is to do, and it is not as black and white as people believe. I think it's very important that we as Christians stick to the scriptures, and that we do everything we can to make it work. But the reality is, I believe not all marriages are meant to stay together, and it's very sad to say that. One of the reasons for this is that we are meant to live in peace. If we have completely submitted ourselves to Christ, we have a mission, a will to live in this world. And if that mission, that will is being hindered, and your mental health and your lack of peace and your life circumstance, then there are things we need to question and look deeper. Now, because being the character that I am, I believed 100% in the power of God, and the power of God to change and transform a person's heart. And when I married my husband, I was in a very low point of my life, a point where of panic, and a point of despair, and a point of codependency. And I believe, and my parents did not give the blessing for the marriage to go ahead, but they respected and they didn't enforce their belief on that also. And interestingly, my ex-husband's parents did not force the decision, but they did not equally give their blessing also. Now, my ex-husband is something he accepted, something I have accepted, and which I don't believe would have come to this point if I hadn't have done the work and the praying and the surrendering and the giving up my whole life, heart, and to God, for him to do it his way. Now, I've always been a person to see the good in everyone, and the fact that he was not a believer, I would have gone to the lengths even to staying to staying, because I believe that I believe in winning over your partner's heart and influence, and the word, and is a huge indicator and a huge transforming light for your spouse, your partner, and anyone who is in the presence of an individual that is working within the realm of Jesus Christ, and then there is effectiveness is going to take place, and effectiveness has taken place. My ex-husband, he has changed to a degree, and there are a lot of things that are now good and have strengthened his character to get him to this point of his life now. So, being a believer and believing in the word, and being a very sort of traditional submissive wife, how does that work, being a submissive wife, when your husband does not have the wisdom or the same belief systems as I did? It's not easy, and there are times where you do have to take a stand. But I always believed in the power of prayer, and the power of prayer is transforming. And I can stand here today with the fact that I'm going through a divorce and still say God has worked amazingly and has transformed things that I could have never transformed ever in my life, and has made decisions through my husband's heart. There have been times when I have when I've not known what to do, and I believe that God has spoke to me through my husband, even though Christ is not within some people. God is in control of the light and the dark, and he can use things in his accordance, and he can take what was meant for harm and use it for good. We are dealing with a mysterious God, and a God that works in very mysterious ways. So sometimes when we are going through traumatic times and sickness comes upon us, or bad things come upon us, do not feel that you have been abandoned, because the truth is, you have not been abandoned. You believe you're a child of God, and you are. You believe in Christ, and you are. Just trust that God works in mysterious ways, and through your pain, he will come through. You will come through to the other side. Now, just because I do not want to advise anyone, because we do need to go back to the scriptures and go through our own walk. It's a very, very... I don't like the subject, divorce. I mean, I have my up days, my down days. A lot of my grieving I've done over the years in my marriage. But it's a roller coaster. And I'm learning to survive. And it's something that's not something that I found easy to do, is to know how to do that, to survive on my own. Corinthians 7:15. But if the unbeliever departs, let him depart. A brother or sister is not under bondage in such cases, but God has called us to live in peace. Now, if you are a believer and your husband's not, then, like my ultimate desire was to be the influence, the influencee and the light, the guidance. I'd been that way all through my marriage, and believed very strongly and firmly, and there'd be times where I'd pray over my husband when he was asleep and rebuke and to that degree. And I would pray through the night, I would fast, I would do everything, not for him to become for that there's always that wish and hope, but just for him to be a pleasant, a safe individual to be around. And I believe that influence does a lot, and this is why it speaks. It speaks in. There is a chapter where it speaks about the staying with your unbelieving partner, a husband or wife, in the hopes that they will be won over, and then believe too, and submit to God. This is what I really believed, and because I such a strong believer and always have been, and I just believed 100% that circumstances will change. And although things mellowed, it had to get to a point of my life where my whole life, my mental health was threatened, and I got mentally ill, and to the point where I felt like I was in danger, my life was in danger, my children's life was in danger. And even though it wasn't to this degree, but I mean, I've had so many unresolved sorrows all through my marriage about for not growing together, communicating together, and control, not having my independence, and then I would even get to the point, because being a submissive wife was really my thing, and I believe in that, and I was very submissive, but at the same time I did not believe that being a doormat was what God wanted me to be either. And so I went at my husband's pace, by getting involved in the church, getting involved in small group. And yes, I got hell for doing all of that, and for going out for a coffee when I wanted to. Anything that was separate to my husband, to my ex-husband, I got a lot of abuse for it. And this is a form of domestic abuse, control and manipulative behaviour, and it falls all within the category of mental health and domestic abuse in homes. And there are millions. It's happening to millions, and men also. It is higher in scale for women, but it is also happening to men. But because I believed in the power of God, I continued with my prayers. I would be up all night crying sometimes with how I was treated and what was expected of me, and the level of what was taken from my independence. I could be sitting here in complete bitterness and about it all now, but I'm not, because at the end of the day, I did the right thing. I did not, to a degree, I did give up a lot of my independence for peace, and to win over his trust. And I also at one point shared a Facebook with him and gave up my Facebook page just so he can realise how much he could trust me. But it wasn't my job, and I believe over time he would realise I am trustworthy, and it wasn't the case. This happened to be a very and I do believe over time he did come to a point where he did believe he can trust me, and that kind of brought me into a new phase, a new chapter of my life. But there was still this issue of there was still a battle every time, and there was a battle of everything, and there was just no equality within the relationship. There was no equality, and because this is where the battle comes in, being a submissive person and wanting to submit to her husband but not being able to, and not knowing who else to turn to for help, to look for validation. But that's when I had to completely surrender and submit everything to God. So going through a divorce is a very difficult thing. Now, I'm following the scripture, but if the unbeliever departs, let him depart. A brother or sister is not under bondage in such cases, but God has called us to live in peace. Even though with divorce comes the feeling of failure, grief, sadness, deep sorrow, and guilt, shame even. We have to realise that these are all emotions that we need to work through, and we are going to feel these things, and we wouldn't be human with a conscience if we weren't going to feel it. It also says in Corinthians for husbands, but if the husband or wife who isn't a believer insists on leaving, let them go. In such cases, a Christian husband or wife is no longer bound to the other, for God has called to live in peace. I think I read that one already, but that was just in a longer format. Also, it says in Deuteronomy, which is the Old Testament, when a man takes a wife and marries her, and it happens that she finds no favour in his eyes because he have found some uncleanliness in her, then let him write a bill of divorcement and give it in her hand and send her out of the house. So the reason why I brought that up is because you do hear a lot of people where they want to separate first, and I was one of these people who wanted to separate first. And my husband made it very clear it's either all, or my ex-husband made it very clear it was all or nothing. And even though I would think that would be wrong, just give me time to grow. You get yourself well, I get myself well, we come back together. I don't see, in case I'm mistaken, scripture that says to deal with it that way, because it says if you send your wife away, then you send her away with a divorce paper, a divorce bill. So maybe that was God taking charge over my decision there and allowing things to force through how they should be, because I would have preferred a separation rather than it to go all in this way. But my ex-husband decided that it is to happen this way. So this is being able to separate and make the change, the beginning steps of divorce is very distressing. Can be distressing, but if your house, if your family is more peaceful with this separate way of living, then this is how it's meant to be. Now, there is this fear, now that I've made this decision, I'm not being a very good influence on my children, and the fear of that being outlived through generations to come through your decision that's been made. Because I believe in decision making and how it affects the bloodlines. I do believe that things are passed down through our actions and what we do. But we can't look at it that way, because we have to remember that if it's come to this place where this decision has the favour of God, because Rich has always said that he's always seen this happening, this was going to happen between us two, and I've always known it was going to happen at some point of our lives. And we have 3 beautiful children, but the truth is, with us both living under the same house, we both have different values, different beliefs, and although we've helped each other grow within and given each other life skills and in some respects, whether we were meant to be together and be joined in husband and wife any longer, at this point the answer is no with that. And it just had to come to the point where my life and his life was torn apart, literally, and I believe it was the hand of God. Some people would say different, it was a test, but no, it was not a test. This was a indication, this was a clear point of the fact that we are not meant to be in a family unit with me and him, and it's dangerous, and it was never meant to continue on this way, for my safety and the children's safety and for his welfare. Now, I hope whether he is meant to find that one companion that he can stay with and they fulfill one another, I will always pray that he will come to know the Lord, always. But I wish him happiness, success and love and peace for his future. Now, what do I believe? I believe that I have favour upon this divorce, and that I will be cleansed by the blood of Christ, renewed, and I believe that depending on the individual, but in my case, I know I'm not meant to be alone all my life, and whether that's and I know I am not meant to be alone, but that is something I can't think about right this instant, because I'm healing, I'm still letting go. I mean, dreams, they can help you through the process too, so never completely detach from that. But at the end of the day, we are all granted free will in this life, and with that free will there are consequences, and even though you may have a dream, that does not mean that dream will be fulfilled. And whether a soul partner who believes in God, who truly has submitted, who truly is, and you will know this by little things like whether they read the Bible, whether they are holy. I'm not going into all the characteristics and all of that. It's really not rocket science. does the person have the love of Christ dwelling within? And is this person submitting their life to God to truly be being led? And it is this person who, at the end of the day, who needing to be subject to. Now, it's important never to go looking. I mean, it's funny really, because I've always been a person, my sisters have always said that I'm weird because I've never really felt attraction towards people. I've always been quite, they would make comments about certain people and I just would not, any shape or form, want to get involved with that kind of talk, or I just was not interested in that way. So lust has never been a problem for me, although unconditional love has always been a longing and a yearning within me. And they're two different separate things, but I would say in this time of grieving, that's whether you're about to make a decision or you're going through this already, you have made a decision, I would say there is always hope, and do not be sucked up by this world. Do not be swayed by people's decisions. And this time of grieving, submit to God. I mean, today is a day where the house is completely quiet. It's strange not having the kids here. Little patterns that I have to get used to. But I'm using this time to heal. Waking up with no one by my side and having this time alone. Although community is great, I'm quite a private person, so there's only a few people I would really, it's strange saying I'm private, but I'm doing a YouTube video, but what I mean by that is my everyday life. I do like my own company, and I do keep a lot of people at arm's length. But support, this is one thing my health visitor keeps telling me. Support is so important at this point, to not be alone. And doing things like taking a long bath with candles, and praying to God, and painting. I mean, today I woke up, hung the washing out and went for a long walk, and it's great going for walks in the autumn because it's so fresh and when the sun's out. And then when I came back, the comfort of a nice hot soup with baked bread. These are all comfort things, and they're all going to help you along the way of this grievance process. But I'll just say that this is a hurting world full of abuse and domestic violence. If something doesn't feel right, go to your health visitor, speak to your health visitor. It was my health visitor that got me to this point where I am now. And it had to get to the point of me going to hospital to figure that out, that this is not good for my health, what I was living in day to day. And it is absolutely important that you put your children first, but this was not forced. This decision was not forced. That's what the important message here today. If your husband is in complete disagreement, And it's depending on the severity of it now. With me, I did the work. The praying. I did a lot of talking and standing up in the authority of Christ, rebuking. I did the work, and my ex-husband got to a place where he was ready to accept he was not meant to be in a family unit, and that it was more damaging this way, and that he would be a better father separate. So I will end this with saying I hate divorce. I hate it, just like God does. But it's reality, and we have to overcome the shame of it. So with that, I will say I hope this has helped, or you found it inspiring in some way, and have a good night. God bless.